Hello, I'm John Doherty, and today we're going to talk about P5. And P5 is when the left arm is parallel to the ground in the downswing. And this is one of my favorite positions, and I love studying this. And I think if you've stuck with me from P1 to P4, a lot of that's going to help us get into a great P5. There's examples on tour of people that do some different things, but a lot of them have a very similar P5 position. So it's not death to have a terrible or unorthodox P1 to P4, but a lot of those things will be covered in there just to make it easier to get to a more simple golf swing, more repeatable motion, and to have alignments that you can check and make sure that you're doing and not getting too far off every so often. So we'll start at P4 and just cover what we talked about, just kind of some reminders, and we'll blend into P5. All right, so the arms in the backswing are never lifting. I'm just swinging my arms around my body this way. So I'm not going to lift from the shoulder area, my arms. My arms are going to stay behind. You see my hands are going to stay behind my right shoulder. So I'm not going to lift and get my hands above my right shoulder. My right elbow is going to flex 90 degrees, and it's also, my right forearm is going to work around the elbow. So that's external rotation, and that's internal rotation of the right shoulder. So these things are lifting the left arm up. You can see as my right elbow flexes and right forearm works around the elbow, that lifts my left arm up. When I get to the top at P4, my right elbow is going to be about 6 inches from my torso. Also, too, my left arm will be sitting on top of my left pec. So you'll know you flexed enough. If you didn't flex enough and you took your hands around your body, you can see how low the arm would go. So once I flex my elbow, but also when the right forearm works around the elbow joint, that lifts the left arm. So flexing, I call it War Chief and Walrus, thanks to David Orr, to the top. Now let's talk about what the body does. So the body's doing three things in the backswing. It's extending, it's rotating, and it's side bending left in the backswing to keep the inclination to the ground. So in the P1 to P3, as we've talked about, there's really not that early extension and side bend happening right away. So we're going to get the hand swinging and the club head swinging, and the hand path moving in, which is going to give me some of that rotation. I'm going to allow my right knee to start straightening, my knees to turn, my hips to rotate. I don't want to lock this right hip. You see a lot of times people keep that right hip internally rotated, so you want to let it externally rotate, free range of the right hip. Right knee is going to straighten, but not hyper extend, not lock out. Just straighten to where there's a tiny bit of flex in the right knee. Left knee is going to flex, and also left knee is going to work in towards the golf ball. So you can see that my hips are slanted down towards the ground. The upper body is going to start losing its curl from P3 to P4 and start extending backwards towards the target. So that's going to go ahead. P4 actually sets us up into P5. If you stay curled back into P4, you're going to have a real hard time getting all the way back to a good P5 position. So that extension of that spine is critical to get that motion happening into a good P4. So if we take it up to the top and my arms haven't lifted, my left arm only lifted because my right arm did this business. But I did not independently lift my arms off my body. All right, so I've taken the flexion out of my spine. I've allowed my hips to turn maximum. All the pressure is in the right heel, inside part of right heel of my right foot, thanks to my right glute being deep and way behind my right foot. Okay, so I didn't keep my upper body too tipped over my feet this way. I've really allowed this right hip to work behind that right heel. That also helps with the inclination of the ground. All right, so I'm extended back. You can look at my position here with my arm and club shaft. It's 90 degrees. My right elbow 6 inches, right arm flexion is 90. I have external rotation of the right shoulder. My arms have not lifted off my body. P4 to P5. What's going to happen? The left shoulder and the left knee are going to start heading towards the target and moving over the left foot. So this is a dynamic shift of having the pressure in the right. And I'm going to push off with that pressure too. As my upper spine is extending, that's starting the process. And then push off with my right heel and start moving my left shoulder and my left knee towards my left foot. Now I'm going to keep my arms up there at the top of my swing. The worst thing you can do is start pulling the arms down, because what that does is it starts your release of your accumulators. So the number 4 accumulator is the angle between the left arm and torso. That's loaded and that's unloaded, and when that starts and comes off, that triggers the right arm to start straightening, and when that happens, the left wrist starts uncocking, and you're in a world of trouble because your release has happened and your body's not in position to accept that. So you're going to start having to bail back out of the way to not chunk it, and then fight hooks and all sorts of sweet spot contact problems too. So that being said, what I just said was the arms are going to stay up. Left shoulder and left knee are going to work towards the target. That's going to stretch my left arm out even more, very tight and pressed hard against my pec. It's almost as if the chest is catching and pulling on that left arm. And when that happens, my hands are further away from my body, and when that resistance happens, the left arm club shaft angle goes from 90 to 70, and my right arm catches my torso only because my torso moved left towards the target. So I didn't try at the top to connect. That would also lower my arms down into P5 too low. And another problem too is when I started turning, make sure the arms don't start working behind you and low. You can see my right arm's already in internal rotation right there. Again, that's starting the release too early. So P4 to P5 is really a lot more things about what not to do and focusing on those very few things that you have to do. And that's being from a good P4 position, moving that left shoulder and that left knee over that left foot. When that happens, you have a ton of pressure on that left foot, like you could crush Coke cans kind of pressure, because your upper torso, your left shoulder, and your left knee is now way over your left foot. Now we're going to stay shallow with the arms. How we're going to do that is there's not going to be a massive amount of hip rotation, if any at all. So really the only thing happening is the left knee moving from to the golf ball to out over the left foot. The left shoulder moving from behind the golf ball to the outside of the shoulder going to the left foot. So that move has caused us to go from pressure in the right heel to pressure in the left heel, and I've kept the arms up as this happened. Now, if I don't turn my hips and I keep my right hip up and my right shoulder up, my left arm at P5 is still going to be inside the baseline. So I'm not going to have it shifted out in front of me, because I did not, from P4, over-rotate with my torso. I just moved my shoulder over my left foot in a lateral feeling. So not a lot of turning and extending happening from P4 to P5. This is just moving the pressure from the right heel to the left foot and keeping the arms up and loading those accumulators so that we can spring up from P5 to P7 and smash it. So it's really more about what not to do and just remembering the few things that we need to do. And there's a lot of pitfalls that happen from P4 to P5. You'll see people at the top start firing the wrist, start firing the arm, and a lot of that's to make a very upright plane manageable. So that's when those type people at P4 have the arms real high, and that when they move, make that move, the arm comes out real steep. So they, like David Tom's looking. So when he pops out real steep, he starts uncocking the left wrist because he's going to be on a very super upright plane coming to impact. So you can see how like different grade, and it makes it work great. So, but is there a better way? Possibly. And basically once you get a model and a system, the main thing is just following the rules of picking somebody that you really like and admire. And if you start studying these pieces that we're talking about, it's just going to help you get better at analyzing your swing, tour swings, your client swings, friend swings, etc. It's kind of just studying what they do, what their body does, what sequence they do, how things move, and then, you know, kind of identifying what you do. So P4 to P5 is probably one of the most exciting positions. I hope some of these things helped, and I look forward to seeing you at P6.